Hello, welcome to this week's episode of the Let Me Ask You This podcast. I am your host, E.B. Hepworth, and I start every single episode off by saying this, and I mean it literally with my entire heart. Thank you for being here. It is not lost on me with how big the world is and the vastness of the internet that you're choosing to listen to this conversation, and I want you to know I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you're here. I am also stinking pumped because this week's guest is with one of my dearest friends, Taylor Cook. You know, there are just some friendships that are like sacred ground. And you just the type of friendships you sit on each other's couches and you cry over the hard things and you dream over the next brave step and you sing your way back to hope. And that's the kind of friend that Taylor Cook has been to me. Just here in Boise, she's truly one of the few I can count on. And just I've walked through a lot of seasons of life and she's always been there. And so Taylor's a wife, a mom, and she's a freedom advocate. And she's someone who carries this unique grace to stand in really heavy places with unwavering hope. And she serves hands-on with survivors of human trafficking right here in Boise, Idaho. And she's showing up with compassion and strength and just a fierce belief in redemption. And so in this episode, we dive into what work has looked like and how she's kept a tender heart in the face of just a dark industry. And what can we, ourselves, all of us listeners, what can we do that want to step in and fight for freedom too? And so with a background, I have a heart for the same industry. And so this conversation was deeply personal. And gosh, yeah, if you've ever wondered how to hold on to hope in hard places or let your life speak on behalf of the voiceless, then this one is for you. And I know you're going to leave this conversation hungry for freedom, just like my girl Taylor. And so without further ado, here's my conversation with my dear friend Taylor. We have my girl Taylor. Taylor Cook, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Taylor, how are you today?
I am doing great. Happy to be here.
Happy to be here.
Snow day.
Snow day. We are currently recording in Boise, Idaho, and we woke up to 8 inches?
Yeah,
it was
a lot of snow.
Yeah, and I got a text at 4 a.m. that the kids didn't have school. And my first thought was wait, what am I going to do? I need them to have school. This isn't okay.
For sure.
Okay, so Taylor, will you tell us a little bit about who you are? Give listeners a little mini intro into your life, current season, and all the things.
Yeah. I am a wife and a mom. I am a new mom to a 5-month-old.
New mom.
Which is so much fun. I by trade am a social worker and went to school for social work. I love Jesus and am a daughter. And that's
How long have you been married?
I have been married for a little over 2 years.
2 years. Okay.
2.5-ish.
And you're originally from Minnesota.
Yes. Grew up in southern Minnesota. Moved.
So this snow's not even a big deal to you.
No. Not at all.
Oh my gosh,
I
dude.
know. As I was walking out the door, my husband was like, please go slow. Please drive safe. I'm like, you forget you married a Minnesotan.
Yeah.
I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, literally.
I was like, you're so sweet and I love you so much. And I'm used to the snow.
Oh man. Okay. And so your work is primarily, you're in social work, but you primarily you serve it's so funny to hear that you're a social worker because you have such a serving, I feel like every room you step into, you're like, how can I serve? Mm-hmm. And so did you feel like you always wanted to get into that industry? Was it just?
No, ironically enough, okay. I actually, when I was in high school, I loved science and things of that regard.
Oh, nice.
And so I was like, I'm going to go to med school. I'm going to be in the healthcare field. I think there was always a piece of me that knew I wanted to serve people, but then because
Were you super academic?
I was. Yeah. And so then because I liked
4.0 girl. Oh man.
And then because I liked science, I was like, the natural route to this is to
be an MD.
Become a doctor or something of that regard. But then I got into college and first semester happened and I was like, I am not meant for biology and chemistry, and I am not meant for a science major.
It's no joke.
Yeah, it is no joke. And so then I just kind of went on a journey, and I had been in a psychology class, and I knew I liked that. I've just always loved people, so I knew I wanted to be in some type of service. I just really didn't know what it was or what it looked like. And I ended up taking an intro to social work class, and in taking that class, honestly, I was like, I'm home. It just felt right. And so then I pretty quickly changed my major, and that was kind of how that started.
Did you notice in that class when you were in social work where you were like, oh, I'm home. Did you notice that your teacher was really amazing?
Yeah. And thankfully, actually, I went to a pretty small liberal arts college. And so it was already a smaller school to begin with.
Okay.
And then once you got into the social work major, it was even smaller. So it was kind of like you went through school with this little family. Like
Sure.
it was just this like little pod of like 10 to 12 of us. And so we got to know each other obviously very well.
Yeah.
And we had, our circle of professors that were the social work professors.
Right.
So everybody got to know everybody really well.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the gifts of going to a small school was that, I wasn't in a lecture hall with 1,000 students. I was getting to even at times go to my professors' homes and things of that nature.
Okay,
it was
that's
just
so
very
cool.
intimate, know?
Well, because the reason I ask is like the other night Zach and I are doing a Bible class at our school, and our teacher there, I have heard so many stories about what an amazing teaching gift he has in his life, Benji.
Yeah.
But I had never actually sat in a class and learned from him, and he was sharing all about why we can trust the Bible. And so a lot of it was Hebrew and hermeneutics, and I literally was watching him teach, and I was like, it's wild. I felt like I was watching someone just worship the Lord with everything they had as he's just literally walking in like the gifts that he had.
I love that.
And I was on the way home, Zach and I were talking about like how crazy of an influence a good teacher can have. Like it redirects, because I sat in that class and I was like, I think I want to go back to school.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I'm like, should I learn Hebrew? This is my calling. Because when someone's excited about something that they believe in and then they express that to students, it's like it directs your life. Like you're a social worker because you had a good teacher.
Yeah, it's so true.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is so wild.
And then you could apply that same principle to anything, like when you're just watching someone walk in who God created them to be, and that special grafting, you're just like, oh my gosh, what a worshiper. Okay, so you took that social work degree, went and got your master's, and you have a huge heart for human trafficking.
Yeah.
And so can you tell us a little bit about the genesis of how that started to really burn an ember in your heart?
Actually, I think this came from just what my mom instilled in me as a little girl, but there was just always a heart for other people. And I think that grew and kind of evolved over time. But I think my heart has just always been bent in a way to the disadvantaged and the marginalized and the broken and the hurting. And so I remember in college, I was always, I don't know if fascinated is the right word, but I was always drawn. I was always pulled to topics of human trafficking and sexual assault. And I knew my heart was for women and my heart was for youth. And so when I would do school projects, and I remember like my senior paper was a policy review on human trafficking policy. So I can even look back and be like, there were threads of like, this was something that was already stirring and kind of burning even back then. It looked different, obviously. And then once my senior year of college, because I was a social work major, the way that they do it is it's basically a full-time practicum. So rather than you're being in classes, you're working a full-time internship, and then you just have one seminar in the evenings. So I actually moved to Chicago for my spring semester of my senior year.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And so I was working in inner city Chicago, and I would say that is where my heart like came alive really for at-risk youth specifically.
Okay.
And I was just surrounded by a very different, by something that was very different than I had ever experienced growing up in rural Minnesota and going to college in rural Iowa.
Right.
And I knew that's what I wanted. I knew that I was like, I need to get out of this little bubble and I want to experience more. I want to be a part of something a more urban setting. I want to see the world.
Yeah.
And so I can look at that time and the kiddos that I was getting to work with every day, and they were elementary school and middle school. And I mean, in their world, they had never, many of them, been outside of their just little block, their neighborhood.
Yeah.
They were not afforded the opportunities that I was blessed to receive as a kiddo. They, at that time, were being recruited into gangs and getting into violence at really young ages. I mean, they were exposed to a whole different world. And I remember just being like, I think that's probably the point that my heart really started to break. Like there's breaking that can happen in just sitting with the Lord and praying and allowing him to break your heart for things. And then there's a whole different breaking that happens when you are with people and you experience it with them.
So good.
Yeah. And
it's such a different dialect of breaking.
Yeah.
And they're
really
both so
is.
crucial to hold the gospel tightly.
Yeah.
But it's like it rewrites the way that you live your life.
Yeah. It 100% does.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So you're like a 21-year-old girl holding this like broken
being like,
system.
what is going on? And I'm finding myself, in inner city
with the Lord
Chicago.
at this time?
Not closely. No,
Okay.
I was not walking with the Lord. Like
okay, so
I grew up.
let's ask that. Like,
Yeah.
do you think you even had language at the time
No.
that's wild.
No, I like knew
that's
my
just
heart.
the goodness of God that would
is.
draw you into that place and allow your heart to, even when you don't have language for it, to respond.
Oh my gosh.
To like the brokenness of the world.
Yeah. I just knew there was obviously at that time, like a moral piece. Like I was aware, like
you're like,
there was a moral compass
this is not
internally.
Good for
There was,
you're able to recognize that.
And a compassion and an empathy and things of that nature.
Sure.
But yeah, I was not walking intimately with the Lord. I knew the Lord, had knowledge. I knew,
you were not a laid down lover.
No.
Yeah.
No. Was actually running in a lot of different directions at that season, in that season of my life.
Which honestly could be a whole episode of like just navigating purpose and being like, oh, I'm flirting with destiny in the sense of like some gifts that God's given me.
Yeah.
But then it's wild, like the different opportunities that have fallen on you as you've abided in him, where you're just like, okay, that is a response of like walking faithfully with the Lord versus.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. Yeah, it's so true.
And it's like, how can you hold those people when you're not holding him?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's like you'd last 2 years and then
100%. Yeah. There would not be sustainability in the slightest, at least in my opinion. And when I've watched people, I just don't know how you do this apart from with the Lord. Like there's no way to do it healthily, to do it sustainably. It just wouldn't, it doesn't work. So long-term anyways, but so I was in Chicago. I remember there being this thing internally where I was like, we're all dealt a different deck of cards, but we're not in control of the cards that we're dealt. Yeah. And just feeling this, there's a justice piece that is a God-given wiring within me. But again, at that time, I didn't have language for that. But I just knew, I was like, this just isn't right. Like, it's not fair. It's not fair that I was born into the life that I was born into and that they were born into the life that they were born into. And what does it look like to instill hope? What does it look like to provide an off-ramp? What does it look like to rewrite the story and the narrative? And there's something about youth specifically that has always kind of captivated me in the sense that there's just a resiliency that exists in youth and
a purity.
Yeah. And so I was like, there's got to be a different way. Like I'm like, they're kids. Like there's got to be a different way. And so, then I graduated from college, and after I graduated, I moved home just for a summer, and then I actually went out west and landed in Tacoma, Washington, facing some type of barrier.
It started with the human trafficking? Was in Washington?
that wasn't even, well, I would say that's where,
because you were living there when we went to the Philippines.
Yeah. And I would say that once I lived in Washington, that's where human trafficking specifically started to get stirred, and
it became a hot thing.
It did,
right?
It did.
In like 2009 through 2014,
it became more popular. It was kind of this hot topic, this buzzword.
Yeah.
And again, I like sort of had, I look back and I'm like, I guarantee you, I'm like working with people that are living in the world of being trafficked.
Yeah.
But at the time, even I can think of like people that I have worked with and encountered over time, like just within my job sphere, that I'm like, yeah, 100%. But at the time, didn't have a grid or didn't have the knowledge,
like,
or didn't know.
This is the industry and the system that I want to come and bring impact on.
No, I just knew, again, it really kind of stemmed from at-risk youth. And that was kind of that was the common thread. And then I did, when human trafficking kind of, popular seems like such a silly word, but like when it came more to the forefront, if you will,
people were way more aware of it starting at a certain time. Yeah.
I started to just volunteer, like running 5Ks and
Sure.
getting just like little things where it's like, okay, what can I do with local organizations?
Right.
And so that's what I essentially started to do. And then throughout grad school, I mean, it was kind of a similar thing when there were projects, when there were policy reviews, when there were things I was like getting my hands on as much as I could learn from documentaries and books and things of that nature that you can. Obviously, I'm a huge proponent that most learning is experiential, but especially in this field.
Oh, but I can think of so many books that helped me learn this industry.
Absolutely. Hearing voices, watching documentaries, things of that nature. I'm kind of just a sponge by nature, but I just...
and you wanted to hear stories. I think that's, like you just said, experience is such a huge sector of education. But when you can transfer statistics to a face, and then you see a face, and then it kind of gives that ammo of like, okay, this is actually breaking my heart. This isn't just something I'm hearing about, and this is obviously, people shouldn't be sold, and sex shouldn't be bought for, and all these different things. But then when you start to know Jessica, you know these Sarahs, all these people where you're like, oh, this is my friend. This is somebody I'm working with. This is someone who has dreams. This is somebody who has a family. It changes the way
it
you
absolutely
are fueled behind.
Yeah.
So can you talk to us a little bit about, you start getting your toes in the water, and you're like, okay, you already have this heartbeat for the disenfranchised. But then you step onto the other side of the river, and you're like, okay, now I'm holding the heartbeat of Jesus and holding the heartbeat of this injustice.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about the tension of that?
Yeah. I think what happened was I broke, and I started praying these prayers, and I think it's like I can look back and these words are coming out of your mouth, and we say these things like, break my heart for what breaks yours, and it's like, but do you really
our famous last words?
Totally, totally. And it's like you hear that, and it can just be a tagline, but it's like, do you really mean that? Like, are you actually going to let your heart break? Like, it makes me emotional even like thinking about it, because it's like, are you actually going to let your heart break for what breaks his? Because that's a journey, and that's a process, and that's a getting low,
and a cost.
Yeah, there's a cost that comes with that. And honestly, I have always been a like do things with my whole heart kind of person.
Yeah, you're an all-in chick.
Yeah. And so when I found Jesus, like really found him, I knew about him, but then I found him and I fell in love with him. And when that happened, it was like, this is an all or nothing thing. Yeah. And so when I gave him my yes, I gave him my yes. And I don't think that girl years and years ago even knew at the time what she was saying yes to. But all I knew was, you have my yes, you have access to my heart. And it was just a yielding that started to take place. And over years, it was just yielding and getting lower and getting lower and getting lower, because I think the more I was exposed to the world and the dark and the brokenness, the more questions I had. I was constantly like, I can't hold this. I can't fix this. Like this is too big for little old Taylor to fix. Like, this is too big for any one of us to fix. Even if all of us joined forces, like, it would still be too big for us to fix. Like, Jesus is the only answer to this. Yeah. And so I feel like the deeper in I got, the greater my dependence on him had to grow. And it was an allowing of honestly, just seeking his face in the midst of it. A lot of times in a lot of brokenness, in a lot of pain, in a lot of, I'm also someone whose heart feels really deeply, and I fall on the more emotional side of human beings. And so I was like, how do I hold this, God? Like, there were many, many times where I was like, I can't do this. Like, I would just come home and weep, whether it was, something that was, once I specifically got into a job that was trafficking specific, or even before that, I was working in a job where I was hearing stories of child abuse 40 hours a week. Yeah. And it's just been it's just been a continuous breaking, honestly. But then learning how to find him in the midst and allowing him to be the steady. I feel like he's taught me how to pray differently. He's taught me how to lean differently. He's taught me, it's been, we know him differently in different seasons and in different ways. And it's like you find him in the broken, you find him in the suffering, you find him in those places in ways that you can't find him in other places.
Yeah,
so I feel
100%.
like I've been able to learn his heart in all of it, in the brokenness and the weeping, and also the joy and the hope in the midst of in the midst of sitting in this and like not running, like not
in
running
the midst
from
of like the devil's playground,
literally,
so to say. You're like seeing what like the presence of an Abba with you can be. But when you said like I've just learned how to seek his face, I imagine people, we use that language a lot, but someone who's listening, they're in their car and they're like, okay, so Lauren is like in the middle of fighting human trafficking stories, walking alongside survivors, providing just like a space for processing and safety. How on earth is she seeking his face? What does that even mean?
Yeah, it's a really good question.
Like it's so like what
we
would
use
you
language
say?
that's
We
silly
use the language all the
sometimes.
time, but how does somebody seek the face of Jesus in the midst of just super deep, horrific situations?
Yeah. I think for me, it's a withness. Like it's he's just with me all day, every day. And it's inviting him into every part. And sometimes that looks like I get into my car and I'm just talking to God.
Yes.
Like, and it's not this like perfect formula. It's not this it's like, wow, God, that was really hard.
Yeah.
Or wow, God, I don't know what to do with this. Like I'm handing this over to you because I know that you know what to do with this. Or wow, God, thank you for trusting me to sit with this person. And now I'm putting them into your hands because there's nothing that I can do further. Like now I have to trust that you're going to continue to carry this person forward. And so I think for me, it's inviting him in. It's stilling myself like internally in moments where it's like, man, like I said earlier, I don't have the answers. I don't have daily, I feel like I have more answers, more questions than I have answers. And so, it's being in a place of constantly seeking his wisdom and his guidance, because even in the field, it's like, okay, there are ways to do things. And I also think that God has a lot of ideas on how to build his kingdom on earth. And so I just feel like I'm in this place of dialogue with him,
and postured to be able to bring his strategy into a very broken system. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what's so amazing is when Christians walk into these different, whether it's secular or whatever, all these different little arenas of life. And then you bring the light of Christ, then that means his strategy gets to come in. And it's like, it's so crazy. The other thing I was thinking of that we talk about with seeking his face is like knowing his word in a way where it's like tattooed on our heart.
Yes.
I want to grow in that so much.
Yeah.
My husband is so good. He'll be like, oh, you know what Paul says? I'm like, no, I don't. What does he say?
Yeah. Remind me.
Yeah. Like he is so good at having it just memorized.
Yeah.
And I think I honestly probably say this every episode, but like the only part of the armor of God that's offensive is the sword of the Spirit. And so I think we have bonded over this about Hadassah from Voice in the Wind. What are the whole Mark of the Lion?
Yes, yes.
And what's so amazing about her character, if anyone who is listening, if you have not read the series of Mark of the Lion, it will literally transform your life. But she's no scripture like crazy. Yeah. Like, and I don't know why that just came to my mind. Obviously, Jesus is always quoting scripture anytime he's in the wilderness, and his actual severing of any lie that the serpent tries to get into his mind is all just scripture, pure Deuteronomy. It's amazing. Yeah. But that came to mind because I remember when I was reading it and I'm like, dang, Hadassah?
Yeah.
Girl, you know the word.
Totally.
In a really dark moment, you're a slave, you're working for a family, like, you know, that whole storyline. So that's a little bit of a tangent. Yeah. But I am thank you for explaining what it means to seek the face of Jesus, because I think being able to take that pain and press it into the heart of God, the only way you can fully press it into his heart is with honesty.
Yeah.
And so I imagine you getting in your car after just a day of war, actual war, spiritual, emotional, and being like, okay, what was that, Lord? You know, and just being so honest, being like, talk me through that one.
Yeah.
How did she experience something like that?
Yeah.
Now, Jesus, talk me through what my role in this moment is.
Yeah.
Talk me through what you want to say to this daughter. And it's just like, it changes. He's mentoring you on how to carry his heart into these dark places.
Yeah.
And that's because you're taking the time to press this pain into his heart. And in the fruit of that is you're experiencing the face, right?
Yeah. And I think with that too, it's like, I was like, I can't be afraid of the emotion, and there has to be outlets for the emotion. And so, I mean, there would literally be days where I would be so, and I'm not an angry person, but I was like, it was like righteous anger that would come up in me. And I'm like, I am fuming at what.
That's how I felt.
Yeah. Where I'm like, I can't, I need to scream. And there would literally be days where I'm like, okay, you know, bless the person that's to my left, you know, through the car windows, like what is happening with that girl that is like to my right. But there would be days where I would just yell, or days where I would just cry and weep. And I feel like what I learned is that even in the talking with God, it's like, it doesn't always have to look like words. Like a lot of times it looked like tears.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, I don't actually have to put words to this, because you know, like you know me intimately. And because we have spent the time, and like you said, it's like the word is the foundation. It looked like a lot of time just spending time with God by myself and reading my Bible and worshiping him and praying and talking to him. And that foundation of intimacy was built so that when I'm in a moment like that and I get in my car, it's like I know him and he knows me, and I'm just kind of getting into my car with my friend. And it's like when someone just holds space with you, you don't have to explain. Man. Yeah, you don't have to explain you don't have to explain the tears. It's like, I know, because I'm just with you. So I'm just going to sit here with you. And these tears actually are speaking words, but you already know what they're speaking. And so I don't have to feel like I have to explain it to you. Yeah. And so it's been a process of, just being really authentic before him and not feeling like, it's like he can hold it, you know, and trusting him to hold it.
Oh yeah.
And trusting him with my heart. And I think
trusting you with their heart.
Yes.
Because I think that with my experience in this industry for 7 years, the hardest part of carrying it all was I would walk away from these conversations with these women that are just so much braver than me.
Yeah.
And I would struggle with guilt so bad. And I'm like, there's not enough tears to be shed or pages in my journal to like explain like what. And I would just ache over like, why not me? Why them?
Yeah.
And for years, the Lord would just take me through this, like, just this fresh reminder of like, the only thing I have that is valuable to hand to any of these people is him.
Yeah.
And so how do I live a life like of cruciformity with these people that have very much felt like they've been crucified a lot of their life. Like they've experienced such tragedy that it's like, and so my question for you is, how do you let Jesus transform your emotions of guilt into a holy like space of like conviction and just like a heart postured of like, okay, I'm just going to be tender enough to receive? Because guilt is the same thing of like, it's not sustainable. Yeah. A lot of people get into this industry feeling, I feel really guilty, you know. Yeah. It's a lot of times the first dance to so to say with a new industry, but it's really hard to keep up with. And so how do you not let the guilt swallow you whole? And then how do you not allow, like, just stay in that feeling of guilt in an industry like this?
Yeah. I think as I think about that, I just think about like the privilege that it is to sit with these women, these kids, these people, these men also. Like I hold it at such a high honor that they would be willing to share their stories with me, that they would be willing to let me in when they have every reason in the book not to. And I think that more than focusing on feelings of, okay, my situation is so much different, and how did I end up over here, and how did they end up over here? I think for me personally, it's just been a journey of, like when you're with Jesus, you're with love himself. So it's like, that's what you just get to sit there and be love. And that's what's coming to my mind is like, it's such a privilege. It's such a sacred space that they would feel safe enough to share with me.
Yeah.
And it's like, and in that moment, my only job is to be Jesus to them in that moment. And all I can do is allow the love that he has poured into me to flow out. And I can't, like you said, like I can't offer them. Of course, there's like practical solutions I can offer them.
Yeah.
There's practical resources I can offer them, but that's not a long-term fix. That's not a, and so more than anything, it's like to know that they are sitting with someone who has sat with Jesus. And it's like, it's not, it's taking the me out of the equation, and it's like allowing Jesus through me to see them and to know them and to treat them with dignity and to look them in the eye and to call them by name and to see them for who they really are and to call out the gold that is so clearly there. And so I think that for me has always kind of overridden
the guilt that tries to trickle in. Yeah. Well, so what about, this might be a little bit of a loaded question, but you're not naturally an angry person, and I love that about you. I think you float everywhere you go. I am by nature very angry. Yeah. And I stomp everywhere I go. And my experience with the trafficker side, so we're going to flip the narrative, you know, it's a lot easier for us to be Jesus to somebody that's walking in pain,
Absolutely.
Right? But to be Jesus to the person that is causing and directing a lot of the pain.
Yeah.
How has that, you know, how have you been able to posture and dialogue with Jesus on that side of this industry?
That's been a longer process for me.
Sure.
And I think because I have such a justice bend, I'm like, my heart is for the victim and my heart is for the oppressed. And it's the injustice is so loud that I'm like, how could this be? How could this happen? How could someone do something like this? And it's obviously easy to attach a person, a face, a name to those acts that are being done. And so that has been a real process of allowing the Lord to soften my heart.
Yeah.
It's been actually, I love them both the same. Like, I love, which is like really confronting, honestly.
It's really hard
to be like, I love the trafficker and I love the one that's being trafficked. And it's like, man, like, wow. Like, I can't wrap my heart around that, as a human being, but he can. And to know that actually, like, this journey of justice and mercy, it's like my heart actually had to learn how to bend towards mercy in a way that it didn't know how to, and that it didn't even necessarily want to in my flesh, because it was so mad, justifiably so, by the things that were taking place.
That's what makes it so hard, is it is justifiable.
Yeah. And to be like, okay, Lord, like, you actually love both of them the same. And it's happened like in the quiet, in the secret place. It's been a heart posture change. It's not been this like outward thing where I'm like, all of a sudden, you know, not often you're face to face with individuals that are in the life more than you are with the trafficker themselves. Right. So it's like, it's not like it's more so been a change of heart posture behind closed doors over time. I have not arrived. No. While you're talking, it's just so funny how God will put certain, like I said, grafts certain little special delicate things just to Taylor. Like he's like, oh, I'm going to like put this gift in her and then this little thing. And he just like bedazzles you with all these special little giftings and quirks and special things. Yeah. And
you, as you're talking, I'm thinking Taylor's a beautiful worship leader. And Zach and I always she has this roar because she sings at this octave that I'm like, I don't know how she got there. It's low, man. It's more of a trumpet, I should say. You have this voice that is such a, like, obviously a lioness kind of like cadence to it. And so I'm just now making this connection of just this heart justice is so the thread of how you worship.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually such a like victory instrument. Yeah. Like, and so I think it's any listener can even translate that to them of like what God has embedded in you. There's even a special form of how you worship that's like delicate and like unique to like what he's put inside of you. And I see that in obviously you in how we imagine worship corporately, but even the way you worship just with your life and the way that you spend time, the way you excavate my heart when we're together, the way like your life really does leave this fragrance of worship. And it's so funny how it's just in you, and God's put that in all of his people. And so it's neat when you recognize it and then you're like, oh, God put this in me. I'm going to use it XYZ this way intentionally. It's like,
it's beautiful.
Well, my last question would be, how have you felt like having this just to spend, having this like, I mean, you're in a really dark industry. How has being in the anti-trafficking world industry, how has that affected your walk of faith?
Yeah. I think it has just given me a different lens to see Jesus. It's like a different, it's allowed me to see him as the light in the darkness. And I think even as you talk about worship, like for me, worship is it's just such a place of intimacy for me with the Lord, but also, you know, we're all worshipers. We're all made to worship him. But even like through song, like that is always been something that has been just a sweet gift in a way for me to connect to the Lord.
Yeah, you're super talented in that.
Thank you. But it's also been a weapon, and it's how, like, I think it's standing in both. It's like standing in the light.
Come on, preacher.
Standing in the light, but then allowing yourself to walk into the dark places. And it's like it's like you're constantly holding attention, and you have to hold both. And so it's like, I don't actually see a world where you can have one without the other. Like, as we're on this side of heaven,
it's so good.
You know, like we're going to get to eternity someday, and there's not going to be tears, and there's not going to be pain, and we're going to be just worshiping Jesus for the rest of our lives. But while we're here, we have an opportunity to press into the places that don't look like him yet. And so I think and we're not going to have that opportunity when we get to heaven someday. And so I think our lives actually we get to worship him with our lives in a different way while we're here, because we get to press into those things that don't yet look like heaven while we're here, and we get to bring him here. And so for me, I can't see myself in this industry without Jesus. Like, for me, that does not exist. Like, that's impossible. And it's like, in the pain and in the brokenness, I've gotten to see a side of his heart that I would have never been able to experience.
By you being obedient with what God's put in you, and you stepping into a space that he's put on your heart, that's where you get to see his. And that's why teachers see this side of God. That's why attorneys, that's why doctors see him as, you know, like, it's so amazing the way he reveals himself.
According, so beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're like withholding your experience of him when you're not walking in obedience. Yeah. Right. Like, and just so much, like you just said, so much worship to be offered.
Yeah.
When I, back in my day, when I was in this industry fighting for freedom, I would have so many people, and I know you get this a lot. I hear people ask you this all the time. Okay, I so badly want to help. What do I do?
Yeah.
And so to the girl that's listening, whether it's a 21-year-old girl that does not have a family, or the 45-year-old mom that has preteens, how can somebody that's heart is just gripped for this injustice, what can they do?
Yeah. I think it can look different, and it probably looks different in different seasons of life.
And different gifts will have different answers.
Exactly. And so for some people, it's like, okay, I can give fiscally, and I can give my money to this. Like, I know I can't be on the front lines, but I can help sponsor somebody who is, or I can pour my finances into someone who is. I think it can look like becoming aware. I think that education and understanding and awareness changes a lot. And so
changes a lot.
It changes a lot.
It opens up your eyes and then you cannot not respond.
You can't look away. Yeah. And so I think that's something that it sounds so like elementary, but I think it's so crucial that we have to be willing to look at it. We have to be willing to, nobody likes the dark, scary topics like human trafficking or suicide or these things. So it's like nobody who wants to get up and talk about that, or engage in a conversation about that. That requires a level of opening my heart to something that it's like, sheesh, like that was heavy. Yeah. But I think that we have to be willing to look at it because the reality is that there are people that are right next to us that we might not even have a clue are living in the midst of it. And so without an understanding, how are we going to know how to see them or what to do or how to respond? So I think that's a piece.
And holding it even for what it is. I think a lot of times, especially when we were in high school and college, Taken came out and that was how everyone thinks it looks, right? And so even just practically from a mom standpoint or a dad standpoint, a male that's listening to this, like getting to educate on that side of things and then other type of literature that will educate you on obviously the heart side of it, where like you said, you can't unsee these names. You can't unhear these stories. And that's where when your heart gets gripped on something, that's Jesus saying, hey, that's my heart. Yeah. I put something in you for this. Yeah. And then so other ways that they.
Yeah. I would say the other thing is like, as I think about this and I think about like a lot of dealing with human trafficking can be reactive, but I think on the preventative side, it's like, I think the antithesis to this is creating healthy family. And so it's like, what does
so glad you said that.
It look like, to foster healthy family? And if you are already a mom or a dad, it's like, how do you steward what's already in your hands? If you're not, how do you get plugged into, spiritual family, to friends that are family, to how do you cultivate that? Yeah. I know that many of the youth that I come face to face with are a part of the foster care system, are a part of what many would deem to be like quote unquote throwaways, which is absolutely not what they are. But the reality is like there's kids out there that need a home. Yeah. And so like maybe I'm not getting on the front lines of fighting human trafficking, but maybe I'm choosing to become a foster parent, or maybe I'm adopting and like creating a different way of life for somebody. Maybe I'm supporting a foster care agency where I'm, volunteering or pouring into them in some way. I think there are ways to press into healthy family or creating avenues to develop family that are on the preventative side of this that are so needed. Like we need more loving, healthy people to take in kiddos that don't have healthy homes. Yes. And
so good.
Yeah. So I would say that's another one.
I said that was the last question, but I have one more question. Yeah. How, to the person that's listening to this, and maybe it's not human trafficking. Obviously, that's the conversation we're having right now. But maybe somebody's a school counselor, or maybe somebody's a high school teacher, and they just in a hard school, or maybe they're a mom and their marriage is struggling. Whatever your level of hard is, and they're really burned out, and the empathy has transformed into apathy. What would you say to that person that's just really, really tired of being compassionate?
Yeah. A huge part of the social work field is self-care.
Tell us how to take care of ourselves.
It gets preached all the time. And honestly, it used to kind of bug me because
now it's like such a self-care. I'm like eating Cheetos in the bathtub.
Well, totally. And I would always be like, you know what? There's not enough bubble baths in the world to take away the material that's in my brain.
Come on, I'm like, that's a word.
I would actually get kind of frustrated around like, okay, we got to practice self-care, because I'm like,
and as if it's just this box to check. And
I'm like,
better.
Okay, a walk around the neighborhood. Yes, this is like there are things, but I'm like, this isn't something that you can just like check off this list, like you said, and then all of a sudden it's like, poof, we're better. It's like what I've actually learned is that God and I have been on a journey of how do I create healthy rhythms in my life that actually make this sustainable.
Yeah.
And so I think part of that is knowing where am I at on this scale of like, I am so well rested and my heart is like ready to pour out and like, man, my well is dry and I need to take a step back. So part of it's like a self-awareness of, and I think that looks different for each of us.
Yes.
Like, you know, for me, you know, it can look like, okay, I'm maybe not as patient as I normally am, or I'm feeling more anxious or irritable or whatever it is, like where I have to get in touch with my own heart and be like, hey, what the heck is going on here that you maybe need to take a step back. And it's like, you know, the flight attendant always says, you know, you got to put on your own face mask before you put on somebody else's oxygen mask. I mean, there is a lot of truth to that.
There is.
The Lord was like, you've got to learn how to take care of yourself first, because if we're going to go out into the field and be pouring out, like you have to be full.
Oh,
like
Jesus modeled it.
Yeah.
He left his crew often.
Yes. And so we have to be willing to, I think the need is never going to go away. Like the hurt's never going to go away. And we have to get to this point where we have to recognize I am one person. And so if that means that I have to take a step back for a day, a week, a season, a period of years, it's like being obedient to listen to that so that I can become full and healthy and whole again, so that I am operating from a place of full, because we can run on empty and we can do it. We can check the boxes.
And there's nothing worse than when you're really, your soul's feeling tired, and then we'll slap the Christian, the grace is lifting, and the Lord's like, actually, you just haven't taken time to carry your heart and take care of your soul.
And I think it can be practical. Like for me, it's like, man, I'm a better human when I get more sleep. I have a newborn, so this looks way different now, but
you're for sure better human when you get better sleep.
When I was like single and getting into this, it's like, okay, those like practical rhythms of like, am I sleeping? Like, am I eating well?
Yeah,
am
first the natural before the supernatural, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly. Where it's like there are practical rhythms that the Lord was inviting me into. Like for me, if I can get to the gym, it's like that's a great way for me to blow off steam and stress. And so it's like there are little things that I can work into my day, and obviously different seasons of life kind of beget different circumstances.
Of course.
As a new mom, I'm learning new rhythms of what that looks like to keep
on
myself
episode 2. No,
exactly. Keep myself healthy in the midst of this.
Yeah.
But I think it's not like quote unquote like self-care. I think the way you prevent burnout, it's not a reactive thing. It's like, how do I actually create a sustainable lifestyle and rhythms in my life so that I can, like, am I taking time to meet with Jesus? Like, am I taking time to be in prayer and to worship Him? I was just going to say like, that. Am I surrounding myself with community, or am I trying to do this by myself? Like, I'm not getting together with my friends and like sharing all the ins and outs and the dirty details, but I'm like, I need to laugh. Like we
say that a lot to each other.
Yeah, totally.
Every single, I think for the last 8 years, we're always like, I really need to laugh in this season.
It's so true. It's like,
it's a powerful superpower to laugh with your girls.
Like you have to be able to experience the other side. Like you can't live in the deep all the time.
No, my mentor last year had me ask, I think it was like 3 or 4 of my closest people, my husband was one of them, where could you write down my ideal scenario in life where I get to pursue first love? Like as somebody who knows me well, what would you say me pursuing first love looks like? Yeah. And it's so funny because every single person that answered that for me all said the exact same thing, which was just like, you go to the river, you don't have to do any admin, you get to listen to a cello. Like it was just so, and I'm like, wow. And so that tells me for my heart to pursue first love, those are important things. And so then I get with my person, I'm like, okay, Zach, this is important for my soul. Yeah. How do we make margin in our life for this in the midst of all the heaviness, in the midst of all the busyness? Yeah. So I think, and what's so amazing is there's little triggers where Zach will be like, ooh, you're seeming like a little feisty, or what's going on? Yeah. And then the next sentence, you need to go to the river. For sure. Because he knows now. Yes. So we have this thing where it's like, okay, if I'm feeling that kind of that ember starting, and it's like, that's why his eyes are fire when we go into that place with him. Yeah. And we are so, our fire burned out, and we get in touch with the man with eyes with fire, then it re-kicks that thing of like, dang Lord, thank you, Jesus, for ripping me into you. And because I'm in you, I can do these things. It just, the second we detach, right, from that space of intimacy with him, done.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like, use your PTO. Don't be afraid to take.
Come on.
Don't be afraid to take vacation.
What about to the mom? What would you say to her?
Just rest. Like you've got to give yourself permission to fill up. It's like filling your cup as a mom looks different than it's like, I used to have a similar rhythm. I love to be outside and be in nature. I also love to travel. And obviously, again,
that's the worst. I'm always like, I think God said I need to go to Maui.
I know. I'm like, I think I need a vacation.
Where's the money going to come for that?
I would find these, I would have this rhythm where I was like, okay, when I was in the thick of like hearing child abuse 40 hours a week, I would be like, okay, every 3 or 4 months, I need a long weekend. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but I can like go up to the mountains, or I can do something like, of course, if I can, hop on a plane and go somewhere, all the better, all the more, but it's like, you obviously can't do that. Yeah. You can't do that every time, but it's like, even if it looked like, okay, a weekend in a friend's cabin, or something that it's like, set time apart to recalibrate your heart and to just allow yourself to be filled. I mean, heck, if your kid is asleep for 15 minutes, it's like, rather than doing the dishes, I'm preaching to myself, but I'm like, I got to get the dishes done. I got to do all, and it's like, okay, pause for a second. 100%. And like, does that need to be the priority today? Or can the dishes wait until after she goes to bed tonight, and I can choose to use this 30-minute window? Well, I'm preaching to myself.
Yeah. I was like, oh God, I'm feeling tired. I don't want to do this.
It's so true. But I think it's just, it's being in tune with what your heart needs, and then being courageous and brave to respond to that.
Do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not selfish.
You are so powerful, dude.
Oh,
I feel like we could talk for 90 more hours.
I know.
And thank you for your time and just your heart. I love you so much.
This is such a privilege. So thank you.
I told you, I know that Taylor's so powerful. And can you just it's like a palpable grace when she talks and a palpable humility. Like truly just, there are few that are more humble than this girl. If you have a second and you are able to rate this podcast on whatever platform you're listening to, it does help get into the ears of more listeners, and that means a lot to me. And so until next week on the Let Me Ask You This podcast, go out, be brave, use your voice, and gosh, just lean into Jesus today in a special and fresh way.